It's dawgshelf.com.
You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, what's going on?
It's Daniel.
And Ben.
It's Spoiled Rotten.
And this is the episode I think everyone's been waiting for. I've
guess.
definitely been waiting for this episode.
Yeah.
We are definitely going to talk about Infinity War today. You can run from it, you can hide from it, but the spoilers are coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And before that, let's talk about two trailers that came out that
Yep.
are also Marvel related. So that's kind of on brand.
Very much. So
Let's do Venom first.
we're going to talk about the Venom trailer first. Initial reactions, I'm still underwhelmed by this. I'm still not convinced it's going to be a good movie. And I'm just, meh. I'm like, whatever. I don't get it.
I don't know why they put out the first trailer at all.
I know.
That seemed like a really bad idea.
It seemed like a terrible idea because it received so much criticism. Like the first teaser trailer, and then it's like so far away from the actual release. You're like, what?
And
are
when you see this
doing?
trailer, it's like, oh, they just really needed to add things to this.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same footage, but now you can see the tendrils or you can see, like, whatever those drones are.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, then just wait.
Yeah,
Like,
just wait. Just do the James Wan thing from like
Yeah.
Aquaman. He's being like, no, I absolutely refuse to show any footage
he did
unless
show
it's
a
ready.
comic or whatever.
Well, yeah, but that's
WonderCon.
Comic-Con. He was pressured to do so by his studio.
Yeah,
but
people
in this
liked
situation,
it. But
Yeah.
this one, to be clear, it's not even really, we're splitting hairs here. I don't think
Yep.
it's going to be a good movie, but I'm also not underwhelmed. I'm just like,
Yep.
based on feeling like this wasn't the best idea possible, it looks like the best movie it could possibly be.
yes,
So that's interesting, and I do like they're playing up the whole like he can't control the symbiote and the symbiote or symbiote,
symbiote.
and that will be part of the struggle for him. I do appreciate that, and then I feel like that's a good way to get to some of the action pieces without having it be like, oh, but how could he do that? It's just the symbiote doing it,
Yeah.
and then he like by the end of the movie he could probably meld and
Yeah.
have more control over it, but I like that it means that it won't be boring stuff leading up to him being like, now I can finally use it. It'll be like, no, the fun stuff will be happening.
Yeah, I do like the idea of him learning how to use the symbiote throughout the whole thing, which does definitely make this an origin story. More so, so we're definitely ignoring all the past history with this symbiote for the X-Men the Spider-Man history and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely have to step into this movie being like, okay, we're just can completely ignore the amazing origin story that already exists, and it does seem like Tom Hardy's going to make Eddie Brock a little bit more of an interesting character to me, because let's be honest here, Eddie Brock is not that great of a character to begin with.
Well, I think that's because you
whatever.
only think about this story from Spider-Man's perspective.
Entirely,
Whereas there
yeah.
are tons of stories of just Eddie Brock.
Yes.
So I think, it should be noted that when you say he's not interesting, you're just talking about in that like three issue arc of him getting
a little bit more, but I mean, like, you're definitely right. Whenever Venom, my understanding of Venom is through the portrayal or perspective of Peter Parker.
It's
which
basically
limits
what
him
they
very much
showed.
so.
What they showed in Spider-Man 3 is like your
Yep.
scope of Venom, as opposed to like
Mhm.
everything that goes into it and Eddie Brock as
Right.
a separate character.
Right.
But that, I think it's interesting. Everyone made the symbiote jokes already. We don't have to really get into that.
I think
feel
it's,
like didn't the cartoon just call it symbiote?
Yeah,
like I feel like
the
that was
symbiote.
like I feel like in the Raimi movies though,
I don't
the
know.
lizard guy said symbiote,
I don't know.
and I was like,
Whatever.
no, thank you.
I
I don't
we
like
gotta
that.
Get, we gotta
I
get
thought
a
it was just the
next
actor,
person.
but clearly
No, I
someone
think
at
we-
Sony thinks that is how you say it.
The thing I can't understand is how everyone's going crazy about this suit. Now, don't get me wrong, the animation is definitely more along the lines of the transformation animation, is more along the lines of what I always thought Venom would be from a transformation standpoint. But just the one shot of his head, to me, is just like, how's this different from the Spider-Man 3 thing at all. And in fact, like I look at this one and I'm like, I kind of like the Spider-Man 3 Venom face a little bit better. I mean, it didn't have the tongue, and like the tongue is really cool here. But
I haven't heard many people say specifically, "Oh, I like the face." I think they just like the visual mixed with the voice. I think that was. Yeah. I think that's what works. Is that there's a lot more gravitas to it than anything that happened in Spider-Man 3. But this one, I think, yeah, the trailer does a better job of like leading up to that moment because it is that microcosm of what we're talking about of like throughout the trailer you see him not being able to control it. So that moment where he actually controls it and does "We are Venom." Yeah, I think that means more to people than look alone or anything like that.
I think so.
I think every time you see it, it's paired with that screen grab. But I think the idea is that feeling, that moment, all in action, becomes something greater than the sum of its parts.
And it's the idea also that Eddie is having conversations with the symbiote and trying to rationalize or deal, or like, here's the deal: if you're gonna stay apart, like, and no, the symbiote's do we have it? Like, deal's like, no, we can do whatever we want. We have the strength to do whatever we want. We have a deal? And then it's like all this kind of stuff. And then finally, when that takes over, when he does the full transformation, I actually thought the symbiote's more in control, but I mean, we're gonna have to see how that scene plays out for the rest of it, right?
Yeah. As opposed to, I'm just saying, visually, if you had the audio off, it would look like he never knew what was going on. Like he's visually perplexed every time, and then he's actually able, and it comes out in a measured way. It's not like that. It's like it looks like he's controlling it.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah, there's definitely more control or more like teamwork. Yes. I mean, like the symbiote aspect of it, them working together as a unison. So, that made a lot more sense to me. But in the transformation was visually good, but it still looks like it's unfinished. From the CGI standpoint, which is always going to be the case. I mean, like whenever you look at trailer shots versus
I've never wanted to be like, oh yeah, that looked better. Like anytime someone's like, oh, they're fixing that, I'm like, it's not going to make a difference to me. But when I see it in theaters, I won't be like, I see where they improved it. It's I guess what we're saying is Ben isn't going to like it.
I'm very heavily biased towards that. So don't be surprised if I am just ripping this to shreds when it comes to the fall when we watch this movie. But anyways, aside from that, though, there's nothing else showing. It's just this trailer is just more of the extended scenes, or a couple more seconds and a couple more visual effects that we see from the teaser trailer, and puts it a little bit more context. So it's definitely a Venom movie.
This definitely should have been the first trailer.
Yeah, this definitely should have been the first trailer. That's
all right. On to a trailer I liked more.
The final Deadpool trailer. Now, keeping in mind when we say final, we're going to get screen grabs and stuff like that.
There'll be TV spots, but this is the
TV spots.
This will be the final trailer, I guess.
Whatever.
It's coming out soon enough.
Yep.
So
it's less than a month away. So this one was definitely much more. I enjoyed it much better. Yeah. Got to introduce and meet a lot of the members of the X-Force that's coming in. So basically, right now, it's been rumored for a long time that Deadpool is basically the X-Force movie, and there's more and more reality to this happening. And the many jokes that they've made are just absolutely fantastic, and I hope that they are not the jokes that make the final cut, because I mean, with the interviews with the directors as well as Ryan Reynolds, they've always said like, no, this is not even close to the final cut of the level of jokes or something like that. However, I do feel like some of them would be still in the final cut, like the DC joke, the Thanos joke. I don't think is going to make the final cut.
Yeah, because you don't see him when it happens. It's like an off-screen thing.
Yep.
It'd be interesting, though, especially after the ride Thanos had in the movie we're going to talk about. But I don't think... Yeah, that seems like one that could easily not be in the movie.
Yes.
But I especially liked that they addressed the whole Domino doesn't have a cinematic power, and while having a really cinematic shot, I was like, oh, that's nice. Good for them for addressing it. I guess that's the power of this character is that you can address things head on, since he's a self-aware character.
Yes.
Like he knows he's in a movie, he knows he's in a comic book, he knows he's whatever medium he's in currently. So like you don't have to worry about like, oh, like how can we get around this? It's like you don't have to. You can just address it. One thing that everyone keeps saying, keeping in mind they're the same people that were like, no, Silver Surfer is in Infinity War,
right,
is that Juggernaut is in this, and I don't feel... They're saying there's that shot where Colossus is punching, and I was like, just looks like a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
But they're like, that is Juggernaut. It's 100% Juggernaut. And apparently when Domino is in the car before she kicks the guy out, there's like a thing that's showing heat and signatures, and it's the shape of Juggernaut in the car. So people are really pushing Juggernaut. So if they're wrong, I will laugh at them, but good on this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't notice that at all, but I mean, kind of cool, kind of not. Doesn't really. Juggernaut to me is not really an interesting character. He's not really even a mutant. He gets his powers from the dome that he has on his head. It's just
cool to see people fighting characters, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Because we are getting a couple more not featured in the podcast. I mean, in the trailer was Zeitgeist, who's played by Bill Skarsgård. Skarsgård. Doing it again.
Yeah, he's in it. We talked about this for the first time we ever saw the trailer because we were going through the cast list. He wasn't on there yet, and I was like, "Well, there is a guy who looks like him. Maybe it isn't, but it is definitely Bill Skarsgård."
And I'm just looking forward to what this Peter character ends up doing because I'm really looking forward to the comedic moments and just like
I don't know. I don't remember. There's a character everyone thinks he might be.
Right?
He's a mutant. That's a mutant that does things, and he's attached to something.
That's awesome.
This one maybe not. I don't know, but he is an X-Force, so maybe he does have something going for him. I wish I remembered. I don't know if you could look up like Pete X-Force or something. If something might come up, because this is like a Peter Knives or something like that. I don't know. There is a character that people think this might be getting at.
Pete Wisdom.
There we go.
Fictional secret agent.
So not
possibly,
mutant.
But I mean, just because his name is Pete.
Oh no,
Peter.
He looks like he's got things going on in this picture.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but
Also, he's not
trailer,
British in this trailer, so that's another thing.
That's fantastic. It's high action, funny, and everything like that. And what are your thoughts on Deadpool not getting a suit upgrade? Because that typically seems to be the thing that happens at every single superhero movie. Is like, ooh, there's a suit upgrade or something like that, or a different suit for toy reasons or whatever. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen this time around.
I don't think you really can go the toy route with an hard R movie like this.
Well, so I mean that totally makes sense that they lean less into the design stuff and element, but even then they could still do the toy element.
I think Deadpool's got such a specific look that I don't know why you would mess with it. They seem like they got it pretty well bang on the first time.
Yep, it's true. All right, so nothing much more to talk about in the Deadpool trailer, but we will be talking about that in its very own episode. But for the time being, we're going to switch gears and
except for that, it's the whole point of why you're listening. We're going to talk about Infinity War now.
So right now,
don't say it. I told you I'd cut it out. I don't care what anyone says. We're talking about Infinity War.
This is
What's
not
the
a
name of
word.
the podcast? What is the name of the podcast? And we're going to talk about
Spoiled Rotten.
Yeah.
We're going to
So
spoil
we're doing
everything for
Infinity
you
War
right now.
Yes,
I'm
it's
not
happening.
warning you guys because you guys are idiots if you think that we're going to be a spoiler-free episode, especially because of what Daniel said last episode of being like, I don't know, we can't say that. That's a spoiler, but
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah,
And
that's stupid.
This
We're not
week
gonna
has
do
been
that.
filled with
We're
it.
gonna spoil
It's been
everything
filled with
for
people
you.
like, oh, it's a lot. Shut up. Just wait until Friday or Monday, and we'll have a discussion like we do.
And here's another PSA too. If you ask me how the movie is and expect me not to talk about things that specifically happened in the thing, you're
Then
kind
just
of being
listen
an
to the
idiot.
podcast.
Yeah.
If you're Ben's friend
Yeah.
and you ask him, hey, what'd you think of the movie? It's a slap in the face of him and mostly me.
Yep.
Because you will be able to hear uninterrupted what we think about it on this podcast.
Correct. And I just don't know why anyone would want to even have like, okay, just tell me how you liked it. I'm like, why would you want that? Then it either set your bar up higher or lower.
See, this is what I want to
That's
avoid.
my biggest issue.
I don't want the reaction stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to see people be like, "This is everything," and then have me go into the movie and be like, "No, it's not."
No, it wasn't
Or
everything.
have them be like, "It's not that good," and me being like, "Fuck you! I'll show you it's good."
Correct.
So here we are, spoiled rotten. We're going to talk about Infinity War.
That's
What did
right.
you think?
I thought it was pretty damn good. There were definitely elements of it that I didn't like as much as I thought I would, and definitely elements where I'm like, they could have done a better job of explaining that. So, but overall, I would definitely say that this is the best display of what a comic book movie adaptation would be in terms of the crossovers, the surprise cameos, everything happening, like just panel to panel, the pace and the speed, everything happening at once.
To agree with you, I think this is, like Civil War, a great example of what the MCU is trying to do, which is create comic books again through films.
Yes.
Having said that, obviously that means that I don't think this is a movie that you could just be like, hey, like, are you mildly interested in
no, it's not a casual
Why don't
movie.
you come watch this 2.5-hour movie? It is specifically for fans of MCU.
That is correct.
Sure, if you like the comics, you could like it, but like, I feel like even then, if you just like the comics and you're coming in specifically because it says Infinity War, and you haven't really invested in the other movies, I don't think it'll work out for you either. I think this is this movie does not work as a standalone at all. But I don't fault it for that, because that's kind of what they're doing here. They are making a movie that is like, hey, like if you liked everything else, here's something that is like kind of a, well, it's what they call it, like the annual type thing. It's like, this is just a fun event that's happening based on all of these other standalone stories that are coming together for this. But yeah, I don't think it's one of those movies that will be like, oh, like anyone can watch this. It's like, even if you didn't watch Thor Ragnarok because you didn't like the last two Thor movies, you're going to be out of luck for the very first frame of the movie. Because you'll be like, the fuck is this? It is specifically for people who like MCU or just have watched the movies. Maybe they don't like it and they just watch them all for some reason. 100%. I don't know.
Yeah,
but like,
because the reason why is like at that first scene with all the death that happens already and all that kind of stuff. One of the biggest things about that scene is just like, if you started watching this movie, you're like, did they make a mistake? Like, this must be the third act of the movie, right? This is like close to the end, but no, it's like that's where it just begins. And to your point, you're absolutely right. This is not a movie for casuals whatsoever.
No,
because of the fact that you could. So that means, guys, it's not a good date movie. Because,
well, unless you're dating someone who also likes the movies.
Well, I mean, like, unless you have, like, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, this is the first Doctor Strange movie. Of course you can figure out what's going on there. But this is definitely a movie where you need to know what's been happening, why people are doing what, and what the motivations are, how these connections are.
Yeah, there is not a lot of hand-holding.
No, there's not. There's only, like, a few characters that you get a proper introduction to. But at the same time, there's a lot of characters that you don't need that either, because but the one thing I do love the most about this is that the Russo brothers have straight out said that this movie is less of an Avengers movie and more of a Thanos movie.
Yeah.
And that is 100% true.
I don't agree with that, but yeah.
You don't agree with it?
No.
Oh, why is that?
He's just the bad guy in the movie. Yeah, I get it. That's like it. The emotional pull isn't from like you. To say that it would be a Thanos movie, like, would you say that he got as much screen time or even like moments as Doctor Strange got in Doctor Strange or Iron Man got? No, he's just a villain.
Not.
So that's why I don't agree that it's more of a that's kind of misleading. It's just he is a well thought out character. But like, even as I like think back on what he was doing, I was kind of like, I guess I'm just going with this because he keeps saying this is what he needs to do, but I don't have any idea about like what would really push him.
And that's the first criticism, the biggest criticism.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not really a Thanos movie.
That's
it's just
correct.
Thanos is in this movie a lot.
Because what I would have liked, to be perfectly honest, is when the Russo brothers went on a couple of interviews a few months ago, they were like, yeah, we had this big sequence of Thanos' like origin and everything like that. I'm like, this movie needed that. It really did. I mean, it could have taken like 5-10 extra minutes to do, but it needed a couple of scenes of this is who Thanos is, this is why he's different, this is why he's motivated to do these things.
Only if you're saying he's the hero, because then you need that. But what I'm saying is, you already know why. He said, I was on a planet and there was too many mouths to feed, so I'm going to kill. But what I'm saying is, when it really comes down to it, if I were saying he's the lead, that is a pivot point of like, no, I'm not going to kill the one person I love to get this soul stone, or I'm not going to snap out. But he's the bad guy, so you don't need to get into that because they've already given you more than enough reason for why he's doing it. But it's not like, it wasn't like Killmonger, for example.
No,
I wasn't like, oh yeah, like I can see why he needs to just die then, because he'll never be able to live in a world like this. It was just like, that is his motivation. okay.
Yep.
But like, I don't think he's a lead in that sense. I
Right.
don't think everything that was positioned ahead of time kind of felt misleading, or maybe there's a version of the movie that is more like that.
Yes.
But like, and
I'm
in
hoping
some
there
ways,
is.
in some ways, I liked that, like the way they were like, oh, like the roster's going to be very different at the end, and I was
Right.
like, different in the way that like now it's just the people that we met before the first Avengers movie,
I
which means
know.
the people we know.
It's back to the
know.
core. It's like it's gonna be very different, but it's not because the
And
Avengers don't
it is.
exist anymore.
I mean, that's not a false statement,
Yeah.
but it's just like that's not really
yeah.
the feeling you would get after seeing that
Yeah.
movie, having watched all the movies.
Yeah,
You wouldn't be like,
it's-
oh, whoa, way different now.
It's same but different. Is
Yeah.
what it is.
And this isn't because I don't like the movie. This is me just saying I see a lot of takes now that I'm actually on where I'm like, well, no, not really. It's still a good movie. However, for whatever reason people like it, they're welcome to that. But I just think that the big thing is what they did was they created a good bad guy, because
Yes.
in the theater I was in, people legitimately were like, fuck you to the screen, like giving the middle finger when it said Thanos will return, and like
That's what I
people were
loved,
create
yeah.
like they created a great villain, but it's not he's not the lead. And we've always had these conversations
Yep.
about like when you have a lead, there's an element of like
Character
y-
progression,
yeah, and like
motivation
they need
change, all
to
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
you need to see them as in the right, or else it's not like
See, here's the thing: is just this is what they've done really, really well with Killmonger as well as Thanos. Is that there's a lot of logic and reason to what Thanos
Yeah.
is doing. However, for me, I'm like, but why does he care about doing that? Like, why does he want to do that? Is he like trying to be like, I need to be the savior of everything or prevent other people from doing this? Because if that was the case, then you know that scene where he's on, I don't know what that planet, I forget what that planet is, but where he has to sacrifice Gamora. You're looking,
Vormir.
yeah, Vormir. You're looking at that scene and you're like, well, he does care about something.
yeah.
But you get the impression that he only cares about one thing because of the way that he's been torturing Nebula for the past little bit. But at the same time, Nebula tried to kill him too. So it's just like, what are you?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't like Nebula either if I were him.
Yeah,
but
that's
what
true.
I'm saying, like, I saw people say they didn't buy that he loved Gamora, but I feel like that has been set up throughout even the
Yeah.
first Guardians of the Galaxy that like clearly he likes her.
Yeah,
I think he even says in the first one, "You're my favorite
you're my favorite daughter. Yeah,
and then
He says
Nebula's
that.
like, "Yeah, thanks, Dad," or whatever.
yeah. But it was under the impression.
It's been a long time coming of me being like, "Yeah, I can see why this is a big deal for him."
I
Like,
know why it's a big deal
Yeah.
for him, and like he straight up says it. But in Guardians, you get the impression that he says it because he's the most successful one. After
She
you
is.
learn the Nebula's backstory in the sense where it's like, oh yeah, every time Nebula lost,
Yeah,
a
but
new
then this
machine
fleshes it
got
out like
replaced.
that.
Yeah.
He saw her on a planet. Was like, "Wow, you're a fighter. I like you."
Right.
And then she lived up to being a fighter, so
Right.
it worked out for him.
Absolutely.
That part I believe, but like, I guess if you're wondering in this spoiler review what the movie is actually boiling down to is Thanos needs to get 6 stones so he can wipe out half the population, and that way, I always thought it
randomly,
yes, because it needs to be
wipe out half the
fair.
population. Yes.
He can't choose who dies and who lives.
Yep.
It has to be random, rich and poor.
Yep.
But I thought it just was for the planet. But then
I know, but it's all the universe.
But then it happens on Titan, so
Yep.
it's like, oh, okay.
But yeah,
I guess that's why he needs. Okay, now I'm seeing why, because that's if you have the 6 stones, he doesn't have to go planet to planet. He can just do it,
Yep.
and it happens everywhere.
absolutely.
Fair enough. All right, so that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I also didn't get the heist feel of the movie.
I didn't get the heist at all. No.
A heist to me, I get that it doesn't have to be a multi-person thing, but to me, when you say heist movie, it's like, hey, here's a plucky group that like
Yeah.
get together and each one has their own skill.
It's an Ocean's
And
movie.
yeah, and he had his kids or whatever, the Black Order.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called?
The block order, yeah.
They really, he just had Ebony Maw, but like it was like
Well,
none
yeah,
of them
it
had
was-
like skills or like things that made them stick out. Also, didn't one of them die and then just come back at the end? Like I feel like straight up,
No.
Proxima Midnight says like which I loved, the introduction of Captain America, Black Widow, and Falcon. I thought that was the best entrance in the whole
was
movie.
awesome.
Sorry,
Yeah.
maybe second best. I don't know. Hulk had a great entrance when he's like, "Yeah, but we have a Hulk," and he goes after Thanos. But
I like that
really,
nod to the first
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
but I really liked every way that
Mhm.
like Cap shows up, Falcon shows up, and Black Widow. That was all sick.
Yep.
And then basically they stab either Corvus Glaive or what? I wrote it down. Hold on. Corvus Glaive or Cull Obsidian. Who knows which one is which?
Cull Obsidian is the giant big guy that has like no lines whatsoever.
How do we know that?
Well, that's the thing. They didn't even like.
That's
so,
what I'm saying. There's no way to know that other than I know who Carrie Coon is.
Yeah.
So when it says she's Proxima Midnight, I'm like, okay. And when Ebony
Yeah.
Moss speaks, I'm like, okay, that must be the actor that said
Yeah.
that.
Like,
But like,
the
I'm
only-
like,
the
I don't
only
know
time-
who the other two are.
No, the only time Thanos ever, and this is why this is not a movie.
and he
for
never says
casuals.
Ebony Maw. He just says, I'm assuming the Maw died.
Yeah,
I'm like-
I'm assuming Ma died, and he's like, I'm assuming Ma is dead. That's all he says. So you never really hear the other members of the.
I don't think they
Black
ever
Order.
say Proxima Midnight.
They don't ever say
So
it.
like,
So they don't say Proxima Midnight. They don't say Corvus Glaive. They don't say Ebony Maw, and they don't say
Cull
Cull
Obsidian.
Obsidian. And these are all great names, by
yeah.
the way. These
But
are
I
all
don't know which
crazy
one
good
is
names.
which
Yeah.
out of the big guy. But the skinny elf-looking guy who's constantly fighting Vision.
Yeah,
They
that is
straight up
Corvus
stab
Glaive.
him
Yep.
through the chest, and then Proxima Midnight's like, "Get up!" and he's like, "I can't." And then Black Widow's like, "Wait, we won't kill you, but we will if we have to.
Yep.
You'll never get the chance." They come to Wakanda, and she's like, "Hey, where's your friend?"
Yeah.
And she flat out says, "You will pay for his life with your own."
So he, oh yeah,
And
I
then he just
forget
shows
that, yes.
up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Wait, what?"
Yeah, it's
I was like, "Is there 5 of them?" I'm like, "No, there's definitely just 4 of them."
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
yeah. That was definitely a little more. I missed that part a little bit more. 'cause
I
was
yeah, I
distracted
wrote
by
it
all
down
the
'cause
fighting.
I loved the fighting, but
Yeah,
like,
the fighting was awesome.
once again, not to say I didn't like the Black Order. I just was like, I don't. This
Like they didn't even bother to establish the Black Order.
which is fine. It's
Yeah.
just like they're visually interesting to look at.
They're very good to look at.
Yeah.
They're great fighters, and they give some of the greatest fight scenes. And they're definitely like they give a lot of like intimidation and threats and everything like that. Ebony Maw, like to say that he was a scene stealer is I don't think accurate because he's the only one of the Black Order that gets to talk, so it's kind of weird.
I don't know. If I didn't think he was a scene stealer. I was just saying he's
Yeah.
the only one that seemed
Has
like he
anything.
had like a
Yeah.
skill set that was clearly being used for this heist,
Yeah.
so to speak.
But he was definitely the only one that was like everyone else was basically muscle. He was
Yeah.
the only one that had a brain to him. He's like, okay, like I've
Like
never
he tortured.
failed. Yeah.
He was seeking things out. He moved on his own.
Yeah.
He didn't need the he used Cull Obsidian or Corvus Glaive. Who knows which
Yeah.
one it was.
It was also pretty crazy how like Ebony Maw himself was able to handle Iron Man and
Yeah.
Spider-Man like attacks like just by himself kind of deal. Like that was crazy to me. Also love that scene where it's like, hey, do you remember this really
Yeah.
old movie?
I like that
Aliens?
they brought that back.
That was so great. I love
Especially
that.
since I didn't know
It's like-
what he was referring
Yeah.
to. Because I thought Iron Man was going to be like, "Get away from her, you bitch," or
Yeah.
something like that. And I'm like, no, that's not the alien reference they're thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Out
good.
the side.
Yeah, out the side, vacuum sealed.
I also thought, I guess we should talk. Let's break this down. So
Yes.
let's talk about that grouping first then.
Yeah.
Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange
Doctor Strange. Yeah,
coming out of New York. And
that
and
was.
I thought they gave Iron Man a lot of cool things to do.
They did. They did. I was just, and it made sense to me why they clashed so much. But to me, like it just didn't do the job that I wanted it to do. When I first saw them in the trailers together, I'm like, oh man, they're gonna have some really good jabs at each other, Doctor Strange and Tony Stark and everything like that, because they're both walking egos, right? But the issue of that behind there was just like this really didn't do as much as I wanted.
He's not
to.
Doctor Strange is no longer a walking ego, though. That's the whole point. Is he's evolved.
He
starts Doctor Strange for obvious reasons, walking
Yeah.
ego, but he wouldn't be where he's at now if
That's
he
true.
kept that. That was kind of the whole point of the movie.
That's true.
So it was more about him like saying, "Hey, I protect your reality, douchebag." Like
Right.
it's more stuff like that. Like there was going to be a one-sided fight no matter what. Because Doctor Strange is above that now. Like
Right.
he's off seeing 14 million different ways they can fight. He's not
in
worried
Nirvana.
about jabs
Yep.
and stuff like that.
True. So, I mean, I thought there would be a lot more clashing there, but well, that's a good point that you brought up. So, Point withdrawn.
It's hard to talk about the Guardians because they're the only ones that kind of mix with everyone.
Yep.
Kind of break up and do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the big thing is people are pinning the disaster on Star-Lord.
Yeah. They're pinning
He's
everything on Star-Lord.
He's human now. Like that's
well,
it is what it is.
That is his character.
Yeah.
He is a man-child. Like even those scenes where he's like, "Are you mocking me?" Like,
that was amazing.
That was the best thing ever.
People don't like when Michael Scott does that on The Office. Like fans, not the people who actually work on The Office. And I'm like, no, I love that. Every time he does it, I'm like, that is great, and I'm so glad it happened. He's like, because Thor isn't like able to be like, oh, you're fucking with me. Like he's like, wait, why are you doing what I'm doing? He's like, no, he's doing it first. No,
it's so good. That was such an amazing scene, and Drax has some of the best lines in this entire
people are
movie.
sad that he just makes jokes now, but I'm like, whatever, man. He still fights when he needs to fight.
See, that's the funny thing about Drax in general is like he is self-aware and he chooses to be self-aware and he chooses not to be.
Is he self-aware?
I don't know. Sometimes he is.
I think he just doesn't
not.
deal in metaphor, but I don't know if he's self-aware.
Yeah, but it's pretty funny.
Case in point, he thought he was invisible.
Yes,
that's not self-aware.
That's true.
I think that's him. Like that.
Yeah.
I think he just says things, and you're like, oh, but then you realize, oh no, he's not using metaphor. Like this is what he believes.
That's so funny. There's it's just I keep laughing at the one joke that he makes. Just like, where's Gamora?
Oh yeah,
what's a Gamora? I'll do you one better. Why a Gamora? That one to me was the best thing.
That was great.
It was so good.
I kind of liked, hey, which master do you say? What am I supposed to say? Jesus?
Yeah, that was the best thing.
But again, that joke led to Iron Man being like, oh, so then you obviously are from Earth if you know Jesus. What the fuck are we doing here? And I was like, see, this is some good writing. Yep. Everything's coming together. So you didn't really.
It's better than a Martha moment.
Yeah,
DC.
You were let down by thing. I wasn't let down by any of the groups. But I guess the next group we could talk about is when we've just started talking about Guardians meeting Thor. I liked seeing all the Guardians together, and you knew they were coming because they were using a song instead of because it's the only song in the movie.
Yeah, that entrance was awesome.
That and they
really
used Wakanda from Black Panther.
Yes.
But even that is really just a piece of music made by Marvel.
Right.
That was like I like that there weren't many needle drops in this movie, and it was like the one needle drop was like, oh, of course, because it's funny because Pauline was gonna like just turn to me right as the sun sets, like she's like, are there at least gonna be the Guardians in this? I'm like, obviously, look what's happening.
Yeah, because they enter in pretty late.
Yeah, which is fine.
And
they're very important to the story.
They're extremely important to the story, and I do love the way they were introduced, like you were saying. But I love the reason for why they came into this.
Oh, to save. Yeah. Well, they don't know who they're going to save.
Exactly.
They have to save the Asgardians. And I like that he's like, maybe we'll get paid. She's like, that's not important. He's like, yeah, but if they don't pay, it's like, maybe we'll take their ship. He's like, bingo.
Yeah, that was great to me. I'm like, yep, that's perfect reason for why they get involved in the first place.
It was good stuff.
Yeah.
I've already said I loved the Cap stuff. He is fast becoming one of my favorite. Like he doesn't really even talk in this movie; he just fights people, and I'm like, good. And when he talks to Ross, and he's like, "Listen, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't give a fuck, and I'm gonna fight the bad guys. And if you want to fight me, I'll fight you too." And I was like, "Yes."
That's great. And the reason why I like what the Russo brothers said about Captain America, like, and the reason why they had to limit his lines and everything in this, and I totally agree with this, is when you have a character like Captain America, and they're trying to make it more about Thanos. If you give Captain America more lines, it instantly, like, the narrative follows him because he's the natural leader of everything, and he's pulling everything together and all that kind of stuff. So to limit his lines and focus on everyone else was great. And of course, the thing is, in a 2-hour and 40-minute movie with this giant ensemble of characters that have been pre-established and everything like that, the best thing about this is every single scene, every single line that these characters have, it does make an impact. Like, it wasn't something that was stupid. It wasn't, like, taken out of context.
Yeah,
or, like,
there's nothing I would cut from the movie.
There's nothing that could be cut anymore. I mean, it's down to bare bones. And like I said, like, the one scene I would have loved to have is the reason, like, Thanos being the younger version of him on Titan, and that scene about like why he made that proposal to everyone about like this is how we can take care of our overpopulation, finite resources problem.
The reason is simple. It's encapsulated in the Gamora scene where he's like, "Look, it's balance." So if he didn't kill half, then there's imbalance. No. That's his proposition: is there's too many people.
Absolutely,
let's just kill half.
But the way the Russos described it too, there was a interview. They're like, "Yeah, we had to cut this giant origin scene from Thanos and everything like that," and they were saying that the reason why Thanos can have that viewpoint is because he's misshapen, misformed when he's born, so he's naturally an outcast, and he sees things objectively because he doesn't belong to anything. So he just looks at it like, this is the solution. You guys have finite you guys have finite resources. We just need to reduce this population. We need to do it fast. So he's like, and because he's been bullied, and this is very, very evident in the comics too. If you see his story throughout the comics,
I just think that would slow things down.
It would have, but at the same time, the second act was very slow in general.
I don't agree at all. It's Pauline, who hated the movie, didn't realize how long she'd been sitting there.
Really?
She thought it was like an hour-long movie.
That's the thing.
It really moves. I don't
really,
think
really
I wouldn't call any part slow other than I don't really like the Peter Dinklage stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really what I'm specifically referring to, is that.
And I don't consider that an act so much as just
and then
a character. I was like,
and then there's the Gamora stuff, but I mean, that builds into...
But I like the Gamora stuff. Yeah. For once, I actually like Gamora in a movie.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's minimal, but I do not ever care about Vision and Wanda.
Yeah.
I get why it's happening, but I'm just like, up until he gets stabbed, I'm like, I do not like this. I do not want to spend any time with them alone. I don't care at all.
The only part of that scene was like, oh, okay, that's what they've been doing for the last couple of years. Cool. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's start the action up. Because I agree, like the whole like bedroom scene, that could have been cut. And I'm just like, whatever.
It can't be cut because
there was
important
dialogue.
All of it is leading to he already knows you're gonna have to crush this thing, and she's like, no, that will kill you.
Yep.
So I'm not saying I would cut it. I'm just saying that is the stuff I don't care about, but it doesn't slow it down for me. It's just like, this is stuff I don't like.
True.
But it's all essential stuff, and it probably works for someone, just not us.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it was really, really cool to see him without the Vision makeup and costume and everything.
Well, I'm sure it was cool for him.
I like to have that, because Paul Bettany's many times like, this sucks now. I used to be able to record from home and just do the voiceover. He
doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
Yep, he did.
Which you did call.
Yep, totally.
No, I have the list of the people who died because I have questions, but we'll get to that later.
Yep.
We'll not end on it, but we'll do that later. We still got to talk about the stuff. Let's talk about Gamora and her trip with Thanos, because I honestly always swap Nebula and Gamora. Like, right. You could say Nebula, and I'll think you mean Gamora.
Yep.
Because I thought there was Nebula was going to be like important to the the but they might have said Gamora.
Not anything there,
which is fine. I get that
I don't really care.
They're playing a long game here, so because I've always Guardians of the Galaxy 2 made me like Nebula more, but
yes.
I'm fine that she sits this out because she'll clearly have a lot to do in whatever Avengers 4 is.
Yeah,
I the Gamora stuff. The only part I didn't like was how drawn out her "ha ha ha, you don't love anyone" moment was, because I'm like, but you know it's you. She knows it's her because she takes so many liberties with him. When she throws the food he gives her, when she is like, no, don't hurt Nebula anymore, and touches her, she knows she has that effect on him. So that part in that moment didn't read as I
just feel like
smart.
Yeah, no, I felt like she just hated
I would have been
him.
getting out of I know that she initially she eventually is like, oh shit, and tries to kill herself.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying I was like, all right, you're really milking this, considering you know it's you. You know that you're the person he loves.
Yeah, because the moment Red Skull gave that kind of that explanation about how to get the Soul Stone, I'm like, oh yeah, she's dead. And then it just dragged on way too long. And I'm like, I wanted that moment where she realizes, oh my god, it's actually me that's going to die right now, to be a little bit sooner, because I'm just like, because...
Well, I just thought the speech was a bit too considering you're not supposed to think of her as not the good guy, it was a bit too smug.
Yep, it was
considering
very
they were right about to kill her.
Didn't like it. I agree with that. I did not like.
I was
that
like, oh, why is she?
And I also like the right away in the first act. They're like, hey, you guys with your amazing Heimdall theory? Nope.
Yeah.
Dead right away. You're just like that was the first thing that crossed my mind. I'm like, because remember one of my predictions was Valkyrie and Heimdall takes a whole bunch of the Asgardians.
Yeah.
So we don't know
She's
what
not
happens
even in it.
to Valkyrie whatsoever, which is kind of fine because I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that
you couldn't spend time talking about it, but I was like, that's weird that she's just
it's so weird.
Not there.
It's so weird.
I mean, she could be dead, but it seems like. I mean, I already knew it was going to be awkward because I'm like, they're definitely not getting Taika Waititi back, so there's no Korg.
Yep.
But he's definitely there.
Yep.
But it is what it is. Yeah, there's some people that don't show up, namely Ant-Man and Hawkeye, just not in it.
But they
explain why.
They explain why.
I thought they would be in the.
Kind of don't believe it, but.
What do you mean you don't believe it?
Well, so
I can assure you they weren't in it.
I mean, the reason for why they weren't in it, like, so the reason that they give obviously is that they cut a deal after the events of Civil War, so that they could stay with their families under house arrest. That's what the government allowed them to do.
Yeah, but you're missing the aspect of where they say the sanctions would have been too hard on their families.
Yes.
Right there. I don't know what you don't believe.
Well,
they're family men. The whole first Ant-Man movie is I need to be a better dad. Being like, nah, fuck it, I'm doing what I want. But
you're talking to a guy that doesn't have really that understanding what family is.
Yeah, but you can follow the story, right?
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. So yeah, that's the reason why there was no surprise entrance by Hawkeye to save the day.
I don't think you should sweat that one. That one, I know you had that as a prediction, but like, you got 2 out of 3.
I got 2 out of 3. Actually, I made 5 predictions. So I got 2
I don't remember. I didn't listen to the thing again. I should have before we did this episode.
Don't worry. I could list it out. But I made a couple of appropriate predictions, so I was pretty happy with that. So what we have here, the team split up. Great stuff.
Who else? We haven't talked about Thor, who was great again.
Yep.
I've always liked
Thor is becoming.
I've always liked Chris Hemsworth. I just don't like the Thor movies other than Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But I've always thought Chris Hemsworth as Thor is great, and Chris Hemsworth in general is great. It'll really suck if something comes out about him, because I think he's great.
Yeah.
Let's just cross our fingers. But yeah, I think, he had a great time. I liked him and Rocket together, that he called him Rabbit, and Rocket didn't seem to be bothered by that at all. It is weird that Rocket doesn't want to be called a raccoon, though.
Well, here's the thing. He doesn't even know what a raccoon is.
He know he technically is not a raccoon, but it's still like, I wouldn't want Rabbit over Raccoon. Raccoon's better.
But he doesn't even know what a rabbit is, because he's been in space and there's no rabbits in space, right? But yeah.
I like that Groot got to swear.
Yeah.
They made a lot of dick jokes about Groot, where it was like, "Oh, you got to look some acorns on you," or like, "Ever since you had some sap, you've really been doing this." Or what he's like, "Just whip it out. Who cares? What is it? It's gonna look like a twig. Who hasn't seen a twig before?"
There's a lot of dick jokes in there. That was really, really fantastic. None of them involving wood. Though.
No,
that was.
I think
really
that's maybe a step too far. I feel like
too obvious at that point.
Not that I think a kid would get the wood reference at all, but maybe it just well,
these kids with their internet.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about like 6-year-olds, not like
fair enough.
But because any kid that was able to just buy their own ticket obviously would know.
Right.
I think we're missing someone, but who knows? Oh yeah, the Wakanda stuff, that was a letdown for me. But in general, just those characters, I was kind of like, oh, they really have like one scene each. I feel like Okoye got a lot to do.
Okoye got a lot to do.
I was happy about that,
and I love this. I love the stuff that she got, like, in the sense where it's like, well, why was she up there the entire time? That was,
everything she said was great.
Yeah.
I loved her fights for obvious reasons. I loved her fights in Black Panther.
Yep.
I'm so glad she was back.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, oh, they're not doing anything with Shuri and T'Challa, really. Like,
well, the one
Shuri has stuff to do that conveniently means she doesn't have a lot of dialogue because she just is doing this.
Yeah.
Moving her hands around.
Hand gestures around. But I mean, she was brilliant in the sense where she's like, "Oh, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner put Vision together."
Yeah,
and
she didn't accomplish what she needed to do.
Just do this.
Yeah,
and so it was just like to show off how smart she is as a character. But I mean, like in the third act already, there's just so much that needs to happen. I mean, I knew I was. Once the moment I'm like, okay, we're not even going to get to Wakanda until the third act. I'm like, I'm going to be disappointed by all the Wakanda stuff because it's going to be very much like, hey, how's it going? Cool, yeah, hi, handshakes, and then let's fight.
I'm not disappointed by what happens in Wakanda. I'm disappointed by those characters not getting a lot to do. Because that was a great fight. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Absolutely.
Did you find the Hulk stuff a bit too cartoonish?
Yes.
I know that's directly from the comic, but like,
I
think it just comes down to how Mark Ruffalo plays it. Well, maybe
a little bit.
He was like, "Come on!" I was like, I feel like he's not grasping how serious this is.
No.
like when he pops out and he's like, "You guys are all screwed." When Thor comes back, I was like, maybe get back in there. They could just take a headshot on you right now.
Well, because I'm so sure that at this point, Bruce Banner's character is like, yeah, I'm not going to die. Because after Ragnarok, he was just like, oh, I jumped out of that thing. He's like, I'll show you. And then he just lands on the Rainbow Bridge and then doesn't die and then turns into the Hulk afterwards. I'm pretty sure that's what he's got going on in his head. Plus, he's always said, like, listen, I've tried to kill myself before. I've put a gun in my throat.
The difference being now that was when Hulk wanted to come out.
Yes.
And Hulk was fighting for control.
Yep.
Hulk actively does not want to come out now.
Yes, and I think that's primarily because of the first fight of Thanos.
Yeah, well, he just beats the crap out of holy shit, Thanos. We got knocked unconscious. So like that was probably
I am also very grateful for the reason for how Hulk got to Earth, the Sanctum Sanctorum.
Oh, Heimdall.
The Heimdall. I'm like, that was so much better than what everyone else thought. It's like, oh, so Thanos just throws him onto the ship and just magically gets to Earth and everything like that. I'm like, nope, that makes so much more sense, and I'm very, very happy about that. And of course, Thor basically being able to breathe in space is kind of weird, but at the same time, he is a god, and they talk about his muscle structure being not.
Well, he's not a human; he's an alien. So like. Yeah. I don't know that you could apply any real science to like where he can and can't breathe because he's not human.
Well, that's why I'm questioning my own thought and logic right now.
Yeah. That one doesn't bother me because I'm like, he's just an alien. Yeah. He looks like us, but he is not us. Yeah. I like that Groot made Stormbreaker.
Yep.
That was nice.
That was very nice of him.
I like that they did some subtle stuff with Groot being like, oh, I like him.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I was just like, he clearly likes it. There's a look he gives Thor one moment. I'm like, he's gonna do something nice for Thor. He's being mean to everyone else, but he's gonna do something nice for him.
Yeah,
and then he does, and it was great. What's his name? Eartree? Is that Peter Dinklage's name in the movie?
Let me pull this up. His name is Eartree. Yeah, I hope I'm saying that right.
An important
dwarf king of Nidavellir.
Nidavellir. Yeah, that's what he says in the movie. But I don't know why they keep making him do British accents. He's not that good at it.
No, he's not. He's really not.
Like,
but at the same, is it supposed to be a British accent or is it supposed to be like a Norse?
Because he goes, you can't do that. He's trying to do a British accent. He could have just as easily kept his normal.
Oh yeah, it wouldn't have made a difference whatsoever. No, I would have questioned that.
And I did like when he's like, "This will kill you." He's like, "Not if I don't die." He's like, "No, that's what killing you means."
That's what it means, kind of deal. That was really funny. But also, I liked the rationale he gave. It's like, yeah, but we don't have this. We don't stand a chance either. So what's the point? So we got to do this. And like that scene in that the pod from the Milano, the Guardian ship, where he gets real with Rocket for a bit. He's like, I guess I've lost a lot, and it's like, and then Rocket's like, are you sure you're in the right mindset? It's like, well, what else do I have to lose? Kind of deal.
No, that was good.
Yeah,
and then he's like, well, I could lose that. Yeah. Personally, I could lose a lot.
That was great too. It's like, well, personally, I could lose a lot.
Yeah, I liked all the Thor stuff, and I like that he gets along with Rocket.
Yep.
They didn't do a lot with Bucky either. Interesting choice.
Yep.
Considering he's definitely. Well, no, we'll get into that later.
Well, yeah, we'll talk.
He died, but we'll get into that later.
Or did he? Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's a difference. There's people who get killed, and then there's people who die, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think. Yeah, it was interesting considering you would. I guess to your point, they weren't trying to make it a Captain America movie.
Yep.
But I mean, they had Red Skull in it. They had all the Captain America trappings. People were so convinced he was going to be in the movie, and I'm like, why would he ever be in the movie? And then he was, and I was like, oh, never mind.
I didn't read anything like that.
Oh, everything I was listening to was
really
Red Skull, Silver Surfer. They're in it. Don't worry about it. And then I was like, well, that.
I wonder how they called that, because I'm like, I had to some of the research to understand how Red Skull even got there, and it's just like, oh yeah, he had the space stone transported him there, and he stayed there in isolation for like 70 or 80 years or however long.
That made sense to me.
That made sense to me.
What's his name? Ross Marquand. So it wasn't Hugo Weaving again.
It was not. It was a guy that's really, really good at doing.
And he's from Walking Dead. He plays Aaron.
I don't know what that show is anymore. I don't care.
Yeah,
that's his straight face. Up soft rebooting.
He's really good at impressions. Yep. You can look up, like, he's got like 5-minute videos on YouTube where he just goes through amazing impressions.
Yep.
But yeah, they don't show his face right away. For people who need clarification, when Thanos finally gets to the Soul Stone, it's guarded by Red Skull, who I guess has been tasked with guarding it.
I don't know if he tasks himself with guarding it.
No, he doesn't task himself. Just whatever happened, he's tasked with guarding it, because he was talking about he had the Space Stone and then it rejected him or something.
Right.
There's dialogue in there, but
yeah,
anyway, it's his duty to be there,
and he's chasing them for a while, and then
that's the first movie. We already do that, but I was like, what is that voice? That sounds familiar. And then it was Red Skull. I'm like, holy shit, those people were right. But that was the point of saying it was Ross Marquand. I think he's in that like circle of people who I was listening to the podcast. I only know him from Walking Dead, but he is big in the comedy circle.
Yeah.
So maybe he probably just said, "Oh, I'm playing Red Skull." Yeah. But at first I was like, "Holy shit, he's back!" Because I always liked him as a villain.
Oh, I've loved Red Skull.
Completely different in this. None of that matters. It was just like another moment where Pauline was like, "Who is that?" And I was like, "Well, you've seen 2 of the 3 Captain America movies. Unfortunately, it's not the one he was in."
Yeah.
But
and even like when I was watching with my buddy Joe, he was like, "Who is that?" I'm like, "Dude, that's Red Skull." How are you not like? But at the same time, it's like, that's why this is not a movie for casuals.
No,
like,
you got to know what's going on.
You got to know what's going on. But the thing is, does it take away from it if you don't know? No, it doesn't take away from it at all.
I think it does, because you won't be it won't matter as much, especially when we get to the deaths. If it's not something that you are leaning into or invested in, then this will take away from it.
At that scene, I'm like, oh my god, they actually are introducing death. But at the same time, I'm like, I was excited for that scene because it looked like MCU's death, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he's gonna meet death and be like, oh, this is. Be like, I'm falling in love with you kind of deal, or like have that kind of backstory, and then kind of be like, oh, this is why, because like that's why he does it in Infinity War, to impress death. Because
I'm glad they went away from that.
Yeah,
in this, I think the Gamora thing was pretty.
The Gamora thing. That's
a good idea.
Like I did like that a lot. The makeup, the little big cameo there, that was really, really, really cool, and that they kept that. To me,
I mean, other than I heard that, and I don't know that people were like, he was for sure not so much as they were talking. They pretty much it was like a foregone conclusion. It was in it. They were just talking about how he would be used in it.
Yeah,
and none of them said that.
Right.
Just kind of like how no one really got where the Soul Stone was. Everyone had their theories, which good for that movie for pulling 2 things off that no one would have guessed.
True. Very, very true.
Yeah. What else? Are we missing anyone? I don't know. Because most people I want to talk about is when they die. What?
No, nothing major. I think they were missing at this point.
I liked the spider iron suit. That didn't bother me as much as I thought it would.
It was gonna bother you?
Yeah, I don't like that look. It looks stupid to me.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
That's
and
weird.
It's like it takes away from what I like about Spider-Man, which is like, yes, he's got powers, but pretty much he's only really got the webbing going for him.
Yeah.
So the extra stuff, and I don't like that. I don't like that going in that direction, really. But it worked here, and he needed it, obviously, or else he would have died.
Yep.
It's like 10 times.
And
I like the Pepper Pot stuff as well. That kind of gave it like
the baby
Tony.
thing.
that part I don't care about. I get that it was I get that was like an Easter egg for people. Like, oh, that's Tony's cousin.
Morgan Stark is Tony's cousin.
But it was more. I like that they put him in a place where it was like, you could be happy.
Yeah.
So this choice you're making is gonna ruin your happiness. Like, even if you live through this, you probably are gonna come home to being sad.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was important, but everyone has some good motivations, and we didn't really get into it. But the Star-Lord thing, I think people bump heads up against that. Of like,
I don't know,
but I feel like
he's a child. At the end of the day, he's a child.
So what we're talking about is
purely driven by id.
Everyone has seen in the trailer where he's like, "Oh, your plan is good, except for it sucks. Let me plan." And there is no confirmation that it really is his plan, but he does say it's his plan. But they trap Thanos on Titan through some amazing stuff. Doctor Strange gets to do cool magic stuff, and they all use the portals and beat him up. Star-Lord gets to give him the finger, and they trap him down. And then Spider-Man and Iron Man are trying to take off Thanos' gauntlet until Star-Lord comes back, and he's like, "Hey, so where's Gamora?" And then finds out that Gamora died, as we've already told you, thrown off a cliff, so that he could get the Soul Stone, and it does not work out for anyone because then Star-Lord is like, "Fuck you!"
and just shoots him in the face or something.
No, he gun butts him.
That's even worse. And then Mantis loses control because it's Mantis that's suppressing him.
She did what she did with Ego in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where she put him to sleep, so to speak, or at least sedated him. And she gets thrown off. I can't tell. He may have hit her hand or something. I can't tell because blood squirts out at one point.
Well, no, that was the. Oh God, that was more the Star-Lord thing. It's like all that for just a drop of blood.
No, that's Iron Man.
That was Iron Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Iron Man has just some sick moves.
Yeah.
But it only gets a drop of blood out of Thanos, whereas Star-Lord hit, and I thought he hit Mantis's hand, but he might not have. He might have just.
I think
hit him so much that he moved his head, and Mantis goes off, and basically that's the end of everyone, because then Thanos gets free, and he fights everyone. Another heartbreaking moment for people was when Scarlet Witch does break the gem on her own, and then Thanos is like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll just turn back time." And he's in a position where he's in between her and Vision, so he really puts her out of place, and then he does exactly what everyone thought and rips
the Mind Stone from Vision.
Yeah,
that's it.
And he turns gray for some reason.
Yep. Because all the colors out of his world.
Yeah, he's gone. He's
Vision
dead.
is basically a John Mayer song.
I thought he was going to recruit Scarlet Witch because I was like, well, that's her brother and her lover gone.
Ooh.
So what is she going to do? But she's dead, so that's
she's gone.
Or is she? What it is. Well, yeah.
I mean, at this point, I guess we might as well talk about the deaths, so to speak.
So
I mean, there's
in
the
chronological
real deaths,
order,
and then
Heimdall, which we already talked about. Obviously, he's dead. Idris Elba wants nothing to do with this universe anymore.
Yeah, good for him.
And I'm glad he went out the way he did. At first, I was like, nah, come on, I want more of him. But he doesn't want to be there. No. At least he got to like defy Thanos and get Hulk out of there.
I'm getting a sense from the Thor franchise. I mean, the Natalie Portman. No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
But whatever.
She said she'd come back. So,
well, really?
Yeah. There's no way.
Jane Thor for the win.
There's no way as an actor you could look at like what these movies do and the exposure gives you like and be like, no, I don't want that kind of like financial thing to be able to do my own stuff or like even the clout to have that visibility. There's no way. Like, and she was already in. So like I can see her being like, yeah, I would go back. I'm not saying she's going to be in anything going forward. I'm just saying I'm sure she looks back and she's like, you know what? Yeah, I would go back if I could. Loki dies, which everyone knew. I feel like we really missed it by not saying Heimdall when we were predicting who would die, because he definitely.
Oh, yeah. Well, because the thing is, I didn't think he would die because of the fact that he would be like, I have the Soul Stone, and I didn't think that Thanos would get all 6. Like, that's why.
I guess that's the one thing we haven't said. He gets all 6 for sure, all
6 stones.
And he does his snap, but that leads into what I wanted to talk about. So that's why I'm taking my time with this. I know people are probably mad. So Loki dies. Pretty gory death too.
Yeah.
Like the blood comes out of his eyes, and he is fucked up. He gets choked out.
Oh yeah.
Gamora, not as gory, just thrown off a cliff.
Yep.
by Thanos.
The Collector.
So wait, Heimdall doesn't get to. Yeah, but it's hard to say if the Collector actually was ever there because that was the Reality Stone.
Right.
So
Which,
we
by the
can't.
way, there's a little Arrested Development.
Oh yeah,
Tobias Funke.
He
in the
is
Blue Man
in
group.
his Blue Man Group
Yep.
get up.
Or at
It
least
is-
it's a nod. I don't think it's actually Tobias Funke.
Well, I don't know if it's David Cross,
Yeah, I
but
don't
it
know
is
if it's David-
definitely
yeah.
supposed to be that
It's a
character.
nod to
Just
that.
the way that
Yeah.
they had the stairs in that
Yeah.
one, and then in Winter Soldier they had Abed from Community, not playing Abed, but I don't remember what his Danny Pudi.
Yeah.
So they definitely show love to Community and Arrested Development in their
Correct.
movies. Vision, he's definitely dead too.
He's dead. He's so dead. I mean, well, the thing is, the argument is, could he be dead? Because there's a lot of dialogue about, like, oh, so Vision's not just the Mind Stone and everything like that. No, there's
They
Vision.
could
and
bring
he's
him back,
learning.
but
They could
I feel
technically
like
bring
if
him
you
back.
brought him back, it would be someone else. It would be like how Groot is. That's Groot's son, not really Groot. Because that was a very specific way they brought him back to life using that mind gem. So like, you aren't the same if you're.
Oh,
it's just not the
he's
same.
definitely not going to
Yeah.
be the same.
Yeah.
And even there's a nod to that, like the purpose of him losing all his colors, a nod to the comics where like Vision dies and then he comes back, but he loses all the things that he knew, and then from a color standpoint, from a color palette standpoint, he was basically white and gray and black and everything like that. So
okay.
that was just a nod to that.
So, but we're getting to the snap part. So here's the thing. So Thor. Did that axe get bigger as the movie went on? It felt like it was getting bigger.
It was a pretty big axe. Like,
yeah,
it was
I guess so.
giant. Like,
yeah,
I'm
no,
just
it was once you see it in
Yeah.
Thanos. And shit. I thought they really were going to kill off Thanos
I thought so.
because he got that axe right in there, and he's like, "I told you you would die for what you did."
Yeah.
And it's weird that he thought of Heimdall as his best friend because I feel like they don't really. Like, I feel like he was pretty contentious with him in the first movie.
Yeah,
and then
it's
the
like,
second and third movie was kind of just like, "Hey, do things for me."
Yeah. That was weird to me. I'm like, huh. But at the same time, I was like, the way I saw it was, you killed the last Asgardian, and you
No,
made me
because
the
he
last
flat out
Asgardian.
says when he says, "Hey, do you have a mother?" and he's like, "No, killed by a dark elf." He's like, "A best friend?" He's like, stabbed in the heart by
Yep.
a thing. So I was just like, Heimdall's your best friend? Like, not even one of the Warriors 3. He was just like, fuck them.
And still, Lady Sif is like, hey,
I definitely
you guys
thought
did
she would
not
be
acknowledge
in
it.
this movie.
I
but
thought she would make an appearance.
you know what? This probably just gives them room for Avengers 4 to.
So I think
have,
Thor
like,
4
Sif
is the story about how Thor and Lady Sif repopulate Asgard.
Fair enough. But yeah, anyway,
wow.
because I thought, I don't know how it was going to work, but when Gamora thought she killed Thanos, I'm like, I could see this be his death, and then they just for some reason, the other people did something else.
Absolutely not.
But I was like, this is interesting that they kill him, and then obviously it wasn't, and he used the reality stone. But that second time, I was like, no, I feel like he got him. I feel like he will definitely die now.
See,
and then
that
it's like,
scene confused the shit out of me because he snapped like at Drax and Mantis and then like changed in those weird like shape things. I'm like, oh, they're dead. Because I was like,
oh no,
my
no,
God, they're dead.
he just used
Did a
red
reality
power.
stone,
Yeah,
yeah.
he did not. I don't know why I'm doing this. No one can see this.
No one can see this.
He just pointed his fist like a Green Lantern, and red stuff came out, and that's what made all that
Yeah.
happen. So I did think they were dead, but I also was like, nah.
thought
Like
they were
this is clearly a scene they've set up of we're gonna show off the reality stone.
Yep.
So I didn't worry as much. Whereas, yeah, this one, I thought it was like, oh, so this is the cool Thor moment. Like he got him, and he came through on his word of I'm gonna kill you. This is a nice callback. Thor's amazing. This is making him look even more amazing.
Yep.
He's like, nah, should have gone with a headshot.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Should have gone for that.
Just like how Star-Lord probably should have just shot. You know when he comes out to save Gamora and she's like, no, kill me. I was like, I don't get it. It just happens in movies. It's not it's not this movie's issue. It's every movie's issue. We talked about it on Tomb Raider as well. Like, when you have the shot, just take it. Why is there ever a scene? Like, why is there ever a scene of like, I'm gonna do? I'm like, no. What do you mean? You can just kill the person. They're not looking.
Yep.
Anyway, but it's clear he wasn't ever gonna die.
That
That was why they gave him the Power Stone first, without anything, because it's like, no. Like, you're not getting him that easily.
Yeah.
You needed Stormbreaker. That was basically set up. That's the only thing that will actually kill him.
Yep.
And I noticed even Tony was never talking about let's kill him. He was like, no, let's pin him down, get what we need, and get out of here. This is not gonna.
It's not going to go.
We're not gonna kill this guy.
Because I was pretty sure Tony was just like, let's just take it and then leave, and then he's stuck on Titan because he can't teleport or anything.
Nah,
like
he's
that
gone.
anymore.
Yeah, I know. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
But we're getting to there. So then Thanos is like, "Nah, you should have done a headshot." Snaps, and I was like, "That could be the end of the movie."
Yep.
But it was not.
I thought it was. I
Yeah.
thought they were just gonna leave it like that and be like, "You bastards."
Well, I mean, they still got that reaction from my audience.
Yeah.
Wait, when did they start crying? Oh yeah, so Bucky dies. That's the next person. He's
That's
the first person. He's the first person to go to dust. And the woman behind me went, "No!"
Yeah.
And then cried for the next 10 minutes.
No, really?
And I was like, "Come on!" But she was not alone. There was 3 people by the end of it crying.
Don't get me wrong. I was just like, "No," and it's like, "No." But the one that got me like tearing up was.
We'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Mantis, yeah, whatever.
Who cares?
I mean, Drax. People say they liked that he actually called out for Star-Lord while he was dying. Like he said,
Yeah.
Quill, and I was like, I guess that could affect some people.
Yeah.
Groot. Yeah, I guess people like Groot.
See, I like
it
Groot.
was more because of Rocket's reaction.
It was
So
definitely
giving
because of
Rocket's reaction to Groot dying.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was there when
Mhm.
Groot's dad died, and it's like, man, like making these people go through these deaths. I think that's the smart thing. Even if you are like us, and you're like, well, obviously they're coming back because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is guaranteed, and
Right.
and even if Gamora's not in it, like even if they do keep her death, because he did kind of say like the deaths are for real. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is the pre-snap ones
Yes.
might be permanent, but these snap ones, but we'll go through them. But like, I was like, yeah, I don't. Even if I don't care that I know they're coming back, it is rough watching these people go through losing their loved ones because they don't know they're coming back.
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch, I didn't even remember she died until we were talking, and I was like, oh yeah, she definitely dies. Spider-Man was rough.
That's
That
the
one
one
got
that
me.
killed me. I was especially because he was like, "Mr. Stark."
Yeah, he's
I
just a
don't-
kid, man.
I don't want to do this,
and he
it's
wasn't
like,
supposed to be there.
Oh my god, that just killed me.
Yeah,
That killed me. Fuck.
Yeah,
That
that
was
was
brutal.
rough.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because he was so happy to finally become an Avenger, and he's
Yeah.
like, everything to lose.
Yeah.
Star-Lord, yeah. By that point, it was diminishing returns. I was
Yeah,
like,
at that point, I was
he's
just like, you know
out.
what? You kind of deserve to die a little bit.
Black Panther did surprise me, because I'm like,
Oh,
oh, they're not
that
going to
was
kill Black
brutal.
Panther. Because it's like Okoye, and once again, it's Okoye's reaction that really gets you.
Yep.
Even if you're like, well, obviously there's a Black Panther 2, you're like fuck, like,
Yeah.
because you think she's gonna die because he's coming and he's like, oh look, this is no place, and it's like, no, you're out.
Yep. That was brutal to me. I'm like, holy crap, because I just fell in love with Black Panther so much.
That was upsetting. Falcon dying, I really like him as a character. I like that movie fights thing I watched.
Yeah.
Someone made a good point. Like, Falcon is a great, like, unfortunately it's sidekick. He's not like his own person,
Yeah.
but like, he still makes his decisions. Like in Civil War, when he's like, "Are you sure we want to do this?" The people end up shooting at you. Usually end up shooting at me.
Yep.
Like that. He knows that going into all of these things, and he stays loyal.
Yep.
Alternatively, War Machine, they're like, he's given up Iron Man like 3 times already. Like,
Yeah.
he is not a good friend that
No,
way.
he's not.
They don't do a good job of that. And then he's like, and if Iron Man had decided not to sign the things, that would have been a non-issue for War Machine. He would be like, yeah, I'll fucking get you too.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I do like Falcon, so it was kind of like, that sucks, because Falcon has been pretty much the only person that's been there for Cap since Winter Soldier. Like,
Yeah,
he's
like
been a
consistently
great,
like behind him for sure.
yeah, like that. So that's again, you may be like, who cares about the character, but a loss for someone who
Yes.
just watched Bucky die, and then you're like, fuck, and he has to lose Falcon too.
Yep.
That's like, that is all of his connections now. Like, yes, it seems like him and Black Widow are on good terms, but like,
Yeah.
in terms of if you're thinking of just his arc, it's been
Yep.
Peggy and Bucky. They're gone now.
Yep. His world
And
is
then
pretty
like
much gone.
his link to like this modern world was Falcon. Like, that's the guy who's like, I understand what you're going through. Like, that's how they bonded.
Yep.
And it's like, fuck, like he's gone too. That sucks for Cap.
Yep.
Who else dies?
Strange. Doctor
Yep,
Strange
he's
dies.
next. That's some good stuff.
And his death is very interesting too, because like while he's dying, he says something to Tony, and I forget exactly what he says, but he says something to Tony kind of deal while he's dying, and it's because Will is calculating all those outcomes. It makes me think.
Oh, and he just says this was the only way.
Yes, this is the only way. So that to me is like, oh, that must be in reference to this is the 450 million ways and only one outcome. Like this is the only way kind of deal to give up the time stone to actually give it to him now.
Well, because so he has two moments with Tony about that. There's when I thought I was definitely right and they were going to kill Iron Man because he had stabbed. Yeah. And Doctor said, no, spare his life and I'll give you the time stone.
Right.
And he goes, why would you do that? And he's like, this is the end game now. And then when he's dying, he's like, yeah, this was the only way.
Right.
Which doesn't really help Tony because he's like, give me some information on how I get off this planet.
Yeah. And also the idea of like, okay, this is the only way, but it would have been nice if you told me about what I need to do after the fact, after you die. Like, that's brutal.
And then the surprises, only because Samuel Jackson talks so much about how he doesn't get to be in Black Panther and they never give him a fucking call for Avengers.
Yep.
He showed up at the end with Maria Hill. She dies first, obviously.
Yes.
And then one of the bigger laughs of the night, which I guess you have to end on after something like that, was him going, before he dies as well. But he also sent off his thing to the other prediction you made, which was he gave Captain Marvel the
pager.
Yeah, he was like, hey.
Also,
she's not on screen, we should say. It's just he sends it and her logo comes up. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's who he sent.
And also, Maria Hill, when she makes that phone call right before she's about to die, she goes like, Clint. So obviously Clint, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
That's what's coming
I
back.
thought, after seeing it, I was like, maybe they could have done... That's a good one. Mm-hmm. But I would have also shown maybe like... Hawkeye and Ant-Man's families dying, like going to dust.
Oh my god!
Because that would, I mean, it would be rough, but it would be like you'd be like, oh, that's
rough at that point.
Unless you're like, now that's why they'd get into the fight. Because like, if they already lost that, that's your motivation to be like, I'm getting them back. Like, you fucking kidding me? I stayed out of this and I still lose my family. I'm in there.
Yep.
That's one thing I thought they were gonna do, but they're just really not in it, which is fine. Right. It's just. I guess they could have used the giant man in this movie.
Could have.
It's fine. He'll be in something.
He'll do something.
That's. I guess we're both. It's now about how are they going to get these people who turned dust back, do you think all of the people who turned to dust will be back?
Here's what I actually think, and of course, before we talk about this, I think it's a good point to discuss who's left of these characters.
Oh, the original.
What we have, so we basically have the original Avengers cast. So we have Bruce Banner, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, War Machine is left, and Nebula. Rocket is left.
So not original then.
Not original.
Because I said it's everyone that we saw before.
Well, I mean,
so
technically the original Avengers.
Half of Guardians, are
half
still
of Guardians.
around.
Well, 2 of Guardians is still around.
I guess Rocket's really the only Guardian.
Yeah.
Nebula never really officially.
Yeah. Well,
did they say welcome to the Guardians?
Well, they offered her, and then she was like, "No, I have to
yeah.
kill Thanos." And then
she's not really a Guardian. She's just a member of that.
Pending accept. She's a Facebook invite.
Yeah. They sent the request, and she has not accepted.
It's checkmark scene.
But I think it's quite clear she'll be in there.
Yeah.
Her torture scene was pretty intense.
That was insane.
Yeah,
that was absolutely insane.
She's gone through a lot.
Oh yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, it might look not so bad, but then if you'd seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and when she talks about how he picked her apart, you're like, oh, that's what she meant. Yeah. That's right there. That's the payoff to that.
The other thing that pissed me off was Gamora's like if this happens, you have to kill me. Yeah, okay. So you're willing to sacrifice yourself, but you're not willing to sacrifice your own sister to save the rest of the universe or half the universe. That's what it came down to me. Because it's like, I get it, but at the same time, if you were strong enough to say, like, you have to kill me.
But I think the idea was, once it's out, right? Yeah. So, like, he already knows, she knows.
Yes.
Her whole thing was, I don't even want him to know I know.
Yes.
So she was trying to. By the time it got to that, it was done. Like the worst case of what she was thinking, or it had already happened.
She could have been like, "No, I'm just not going to tell you. You keep torturing her all you want and everything like that, and that's it."
Well, that doesn't make sense, because if your whole thing is I don't want people to die, why would you be like, "Yeah, kill her, and I'm just going to keep letting you kill people until
for trillions." That's the ultimate
that was
argument.
her one life, but if he's going to just keep killing people. it's no longer one life.
That's true.
Yeah.
But that's also assumed, like, because the thing is, Nebula is the biggest bargaining chip against Gamora's kind of moral system, or whatever you want to call it. Like, she
isn't, though, because Star-Lord is. What I'm saying is,
True.
you can't let it escalate. That was already, it was over. She had nothing. She had no leverage at that point.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I still disagree. I still.
But how would that play out?
Gamora would have been like, "Oh, you could go ahead and do that."
And then how does that play out? Like, think about
He's
it.
going to keep going for sure.
And
but
so
at the same
then-
time, it's going to slow down the pace because he goes like, "Oh, well, she could do it at the snap of a finger." At least he has to manually go kill people.
Yeah,
And he has to do it.
No idea why that's a better option.
The other, because it goes against what he's saying. He's like, I want it to be random. I want it to be this, and this. He's like, no, he's got to kill people and do that all over again.
Well, he's
like
the
what
bad
he did.
guy.
Yeah,
right.
He is,
so
right? So at least slows down the pace.
He is not actually altruistic in that way. Like,
Fair
he's
enough.
still the bad guy. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't make sense what you're saying, because if you're saying she should know, like, one life to spare millions, that's only can work for her. That's her own power. That can't be on other people. She can't make that decision for other people.
I guess. I still think it's flawed. I would have done something different.
But I want to hear what
That's
it is. What was the other thing that's different other than just letting other people die?
That would have been it.
Oh.
I would have been like, no, I'm withholding this information. You're not going to kill me, obviously, because you still love me and you need my information, so you're going to keep me alive.
Sounds just like self-preservation then.
It's definitely still it's self-preservation in the interest of gaining more time for the rest of everyone else, because she already knows that everyone else is like working together to fix get a plan together and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
she accelerates it. That's all, or allows it to happen much more. But at the same time,
But
to
like,
your point, it's very much like the Dark Knight Rises scene where Miranda Tate's like, "Oh, stop." He would have killed you and you wouldn't even slowed him down, kind of deal. And it's like, that's still accurate to what you're saying. It's a very good point. But to me, I'm just like,
having people die for no good reason. Like,
yeah,
like if he's willing to kill all those people, like, what do you? That's why I'm saying it's just self-preservation. What you're talking about, because he's gonna do it. He's not like, oh, you know what? After the 10th person, wasn't feeling it anymore. He's gonna do it. Like, he's got. Like, how old is that guy? Like, he's not dying anytime soon.
No, not of old age.
Yeah, and he's got a bunch of gems. This guy's not like, he's not like. You're right, Gamora. I'll stop.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you raise a couple of good points. I should have had a Snickers bar. Like,
yeah, like he's not gonna be like, oh, I wasn't feeling myself. You're right. The Snickers bar really helped. I just think, she was fucked. Like her whole thing was kill me before he knows I know. Because once he knows I know, it's over. And he even said, "You're a bad liar because I didn't teach you how to lie."
Yep.
She had no
I
like.
love that scene.
Yeah,
that was
like
great. I taught you how to do
they
all these
really
things.
showed the bond they had. Like, as much as she likes to say, "I hate," or even when she fakes kills him, like, that fucked her up. Even like, and it's like, like they're connected. And I know more of that was more like, that's like if she saw him as a tormentor, like that was the outlet of like, oh, like I'm free kind of type of thing.
Yeah.
But like it he doesn't mean nothing to her, and he goes the other way with it. He loves her.
Okay, so now that we have confirmation of what is going on, who is left and everything like that, the ultimate question ends up being, where do we go from here? Or where can they go from here? So
I don't know, and I like that.
Yeah, the next two movies coming out are obviously Ant-Man and the Wasp. We know Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place immediately after the events of Civil War, so it's immediately before this. And Captain Marvel takes place in the 90s, and of course, whatever happens at the end of Captain Marvel will leave her off Earth, is clearly what's happening, because that space age pager from the 90s makes sense from a thematical standpoint, but the idea of Nick Fury carrying that around with him at all times is kind of interesting. So we do know that in Avengers 4, Captain Marvel is going to be a big part of it, as is Hawkeye, Ronin.
Do we know that?
We do. We absolutely have. We know that. Well, the whole like Clint call out, but from Maria Hill is going to get him involved and everything like that. And Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm thinking that because Ant-Man and the Wasp are something hugely important about the quantum realm is going to come into place with this movie as well. So maybe can they save a couple of those Avengers from the quantum realm? Is that where they went? Because
that's a good. I like where your head's going. That they didn't die; they went to the quantum realm.
Yeah. Because the
and then that makes Ant-Man real important.
Exactly.
He's like, well, don't talk to me, but my good friend Hank here.
Yeah,
he knows what's up.
Or Janet what's her face?
Hope.
Hope.
Does Hope
Van Dyne.
know, or
Yeah.
because I feel
Hope's
like
the one
he's hidden the quantum stuff from her.
Hope's the one that has the motivation in the sequel to go get her. Her mom.
No, I'm just
back.
saying I don't know if she knows the ins and outs of the quantum realm because Hank has tried to.
He's definitely tried to.
He's
keep
been
it
like,
a
no,
secret.
we don't talk about that.
He's definitely tried to keep it a secret from her.
So
prevent her
they'll
from going
figure it out.
Yeah.
But I do like that. That'll make Ant-Man and the Wasp more interesting as they play. Or if they do, like it's Ant-Man, the first one, I liked the way that Falcon was in it, and that was a nice tie-in. Or that even acknowledged, like, why don't we just call the Avengers? This is bullshit. He's like, no, because we're going to steal something. We're not fighting anyone. I was like, this was a good... That and Doctor Strange, I thought, did good jobs of being like, we exist in this world, and there's a reason why we don't intersect with everyone.
Yes.
But this one, we'll see if they can pull that off again in Ant-Man and the Wasp, because it would seem like... Unless it is happening in 2016... like Black Panther did, then they wouldn't be worried about what's going on in Infinity. That would be a good way of making it standalone again.
But I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure it would happen immediately after. But there's a post-credit scene that ties to Infinity War or Captain Marvel.
Oh yeah, that's what they did with. That's what they did with the first one. The post-credit ties to. Well, it's just a scene from Civil War, but yeah.
That's exactly it. So that's one of my theories going on. But the ultimate thing that I think is going to happen with the fourth Avengers movie is after a while this has been released, after a little bit of time, I think the title of the movie, the fourth one, is going to be called The New Avengers. Specifically relating to the rotation in the Avengers cast that they have. And of course, New Avengers. There's a ton of different New Avengers that are looking like cast lists and everything like that. But one of the biggest things I think is going to happen in Avengers 4 is because we know Iron Man, Tony Stark is still a big part of that. Captain America, I think the old suit is a misdirect towards what he actually does. I feel like he just puts on that old suit instead of the new one just because he's like, okay, well, you know what, I represent hope again. I'm out of the shadows.
Are you talking about Captain America?
Yeah.
Oh, I was like, who are we talking about?
That scene where they're all wearing like the bracelet thing. I think that's a misdirect. I don't think they went back in time. Because if Captain America died, then I would be like, yeah, okay, they went back in time, but they didn't.
But if he died, why would he have the bracelet on?
Well, I think that's related to the quantum realm.
Okay,
that's why.
Sure, I think. Sure, I think there's the New Avengers thing seems weird because there's only old Avengers left right now.
Well, I mean, that's how it's going to... So
it's an aspirational title. It's
an aspirational title, but what I think is actually going to happen is Tony Stark and Thor, they're going to go again to the Star, Eitri,
make another
the Dwarf
weapon.
Realm. Instead, what Eitri and Tony are going to do is forge an Infinity Gauntlet for Iron Man, because in the comics he's the only human that does wield the Infinity Gauntlet. So I
did not know that.
Yeah. So I feel
I
like
thought they were going to go Nebula with that.
No, I don't think. I think Nebula is just going to be like a really good fighter or something like that. I honestly think that what's going to happen is they're going to bring him to Eitri again, Nidavellir or whatever, and then they're going to form a new Iron Man suit, probably the superior Iron Man suit, the one that's cosmic or whatever, that can help yield the power of the Infinity Stones.
Makes sense.
And at that point, I think that's how we say goodbye to Iron Man, is the sense where he sacrifices, and then once he dies from that fight from Thanos and all that kind of stuff, that he has to make a decision of he meets the Eternals as like, okay, well, it's either you dying or we bring these people back. What do you want? And he chooses to die. He brings everyone back. And I think Captain America just dies straight up in the fight against Thanos. That's what I think is going to happen in Avengers 4.
We'll see. If there's going to be a long time to wait for that, but we'll see.
Of course, there's still the other stuff too, where the Kree War could be like, oh, well, these are Kree people that are just like shapeshifters and all that.
You mean
setting
Skrull?
up for the secret invasion. Yeah, Skrull. Sorry.
Yeah.
The secret invasion.
I'm glad they didn't bring up Skrulls in this.
No, I'm very glad. That would have been too much. Too much to do, for sure.
I'm hoping Skrulls just for like new stuff. I don't want it to be like, oh, and Black Widow's a Skrull. I feel like this movie set out to be like, let's just say goodbye to these characters however we need to without
Yeah.
trying to rewrite history on these
True.
people. But yeah, I think you hit on some good stuff there. I don't know about the no time travel thing, but we'll see. You have had crazier predictions that have
I've
come
definitely
true.
had crazier
This one
predictions that
seems-
have come true.
This seems way more grounded in stuff that could happen. So I can't count you out on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, if Iron Man does end up surviving, I think he's going to join Guardians like he does in the comic books. But at the same time, I just don't see him living past phase 3
Mm.
and getting into phase 4. I just don't
Yeah,
see
I don't
it.
think they would try and tie him to
No.
it. I think, if anything, he'll be where he was at before Age of Ultron, I want to say.
Probably.
Where they were because Age of Ultron, he would be at where he was at before Civil War, where he shows up and he's like, yeah, just in my consultant capacity, I'm not actually a part of this.
Right.
And that way you don't have to worry about where he is all the time.
Right.
But he probably also will just die.
Yeah, I'm thinking he just straight up dies.
All right. Well, that's
Anyways,
everything we need to talk about.
that was
Or
it.
maybe not. Oh, and Stanley was the bus driver for Spider-Man. That's nice
yeah,
to
but
see
if you
him.
missed that, I'm just like, are you even paying attention to this? What other? There was no other Easter egg, eh? We got them all.
Tobias,
Until
Stanley.
yeah. I know. I'll be trying to rewatch this again this week to try to figure out. So
Yeah.
the next episode we do, we'll probably be like, "Oh, guys, there's a Silver Surfer cameo." No, there isn't.
He was. That's who Peter Dinklage was. He's a Silver Surfer. Why do you think his hands were silver? Think about
it, guys. Just think about it.
So what would you rate this movie now that we've talked so much about it?
This is definitely a 9 to me.
I
It's a
like
9.
that.
Yeah.
Well, there's no difference. I give it a 9 too.
It's not a 10 because the thing is, like, I wanted more Thanos backstory. That motivation thing that kills me. Like, it's just like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. It's rational. It's reasonable. And that's what worries me about my own thought process.
See,
by
I
the
don't
way.
think it's reasonable, but I think
that
that's the
worries me
difference.
so much about my thought process. I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense.
See, that's,
I don't
so
think
that's
it's
what I
that
get. I
bad.
think I was getting at is that he's still the villain. Like, he's not actually a protagonist.
No,
so,
no,
like,
he's not.
That's the difference between him and Killmonger. Killmonger comes from like actual real life. Like,
Yes.
he's actually coming from like, you know what? Like, as a black person, I feel oppressed and I
Mhm.
don't like that. Whereas Thanos is just like, no, let's just kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
So then
You don't
it'll be good for the
understand why
people who
he
are
does
still
it.
alive.
Yeah, he's like, so.
Once again, I understand it, but as a human, not a fucking Titan, I can't relate to that, like, on that level. It also doesn't feel like that is the right answer,
Yeah.
considering a lot of black people and other people lost out on that type of
Yes.
thinking. So
But at the same time,
it immediately puts me in the place of like, yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
no, I'm not for that.
See, the funny thing is, the character of Thanos is oppressed, but it's difficult to understand it because it's clearly he's a
but that's what I'm saying.
fictional
Like,
character.
Killmonger would have been like Thanos in terms of like,
Yes.
I've got a power, I'm gonna kill a bunch of people now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes, I get that, but I'm saying there's no real world connection in that way.
there's
of
definitely
like,
no real world connection.
or not. I shouldn't even say real world. I should say there's no historical like.
No,
Oh
absolutely
yes,
not.
this
Yeah.
this speaks to people of this creed. Like it's like no, he's just a bad guy. That's like.
But see, that's
Here's
why I
my
wanted
twisted
the
logic.
Titan backstory a little bit more, because that would have helped so much more. It really would
Yes,
have.
but it wouldn't for me because I'm already there. I get it. He turned bad because he got oppressed. He doesn't have that extra layer that someone like Killmonger does, and no amount of screen time is going to get me there because it'll never make that much sense as someone like Killmonger.
Well, of course.
All right, well that's a 9 and a 9.
A
Excellent.
9 and a 9.
And my 9 is because it's not a complete movie.
Yeah,
but
it's
still,
a 2-part movie.
it
I don't know
is-
why they changed it. I really don't.
Yeah, I think it's because they didn't want to. It ends with you being like, oh, obviously they have to come back. But if that was the last movie, you would just be like, okay, they lost and he won. So I think that's why, because it's not ending on a cliffhanger, so to speak, in terms of like, wait, what happens after he snaps, or what happens after this? It's like, no, like those people died, and that's the ending. The post credit is MCU style, opens it back up,
Yes.
but if you didn't have that, you could be like, I guess they just lost. All right.
Yeah, that's it.
But I meant more like you need to watch everything before you watch this. It's
Yeah.
not. It is not. It doesn't. And that kind of makes it like Empire Strikes Back as well. Like
Exactly.
a lot of what works for Empire Strikes Back is based on what you loved from A New Hope, like
Yes.
carrying forward, and then obviously you need the Last Jedi, or not Last Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
Return of the Jedi to like be like, oh, okay, this is the complete story,
Exactly.
and that's what this is. I like that. I don't mind because I know that's what they're going for, but obviously it's not going to get like a 10 out of 10 because
Oh no, there's definitely issues with this movie.
yeah.
All right, guys.
That's it. If you want to get our coordinates, talk about us on social media and talk to us. We're on. You can find all that stuff at tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten, and we are part of the Dork Shelf Network. So go to dorkshelf.com, go to their podcast section. You'll see a whole bunch of great podcasts, including us, and rate and review us on iTunes, and just talk about us with your friends. Like, spread the word.
Oh yeah. Definitely, you guys are clearly listening to celebrities right now.
There's no need to keep it to yourself. It's the whole point of this podcast is you blurt it all out.
Yep.
It's happening.
That's right.
Spoiler: we're a great podcast. Tell your friends.
This is your spoiler-friendly podcast, which means we're going to spoil everything.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
All the time.
Yeah, but in all fairness, it's after the first weekend, and we're called Spoiled Rotten.
Yeah, so that's why we give you the weekend, because we don't inundate your social media with like, oh, what do you think of this?
Yep. Nope.
Nuts to that, McGillicuddy.
Yep.
All right.
Have some conversations with us. Let us know what you think. And, of course, like, share, subscribe, whatever you need to do. But we will be back very, very soon.
Probably to talk about Deadpool.
Like many of these Avengers.
So I think we might have a week off or something.
Ooh.
I'm going to look this up. I feel like we always have bad luck with this. But yeah, I think the next time we'll be back is the 21st.
Yeah.
Because we have to do 2 in a row for Deadpool and Han Solo.
Right.
But, yeah, okay, we're done.
That's how it was for Solo, not Deadpool.
Whatever. All right, bye, everybody.
Later.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.